Hello and welcome. My name is Randy Owen, and this is Beyond Barriers Unscripted, Episode 7. I was recently became a member of a group on Facebook. This group was really focused on the blind community. And I came across this podcast called See Beyond. And apparently there's this website called i-matter.org that kind of tells the story. I was really interested in the content itself because it does, the target audience appears to be folks in the blind and low vision community. But I don't think it's really about that. I think it's really about just living life and expressing your passions and how you deal with that. The person I'm talking about, her name is Anjal Jain. Hi, Anjal.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. When you have a guest and you're like 5-10 minutes before you're going on, do you get nervous?
Honestly, I don't really get nervous because I feel like I'm just like talking and having like a conversation with someone. Like when I do my podcast episodes, I don't really feel like it's like a whole thing that's getting published online. In fact, I feel like I get more nervous when I'm editing it because that's when I start to think of like the response towards the episode. But honestly, I don't really get that nervous when I'm recording. And I think ever since I was younger, I would be on stage a lot because my passions are like singing, dancing, acting. So I'm kind of used to having a lot of people look at me like from when you perform on stage. So I've always kind of had like little techniques to calm my nerves down. So it doesn't really bother me that much.
What techniques are those? Do you care to share?
Yeah, I mean, over time, I feel like it's just like accepting the fact that you're putting yourself out there and that there's going to be criticism, and that you're going to have to learn from that criticism. And then also, I think another technique that I have is just taking deep breaths because a lot of times I find when I'm nervous, personally, my breath starts to become really quick and like shallow. And I just want to kind of relax myself. So I just kind of take a few deep breaths before I go on. And I imagine myself doing the thing that I'm going to be doing. So, for example, if I was going to perform on stage, I would imagine myself like holding up the microphone, looking in the audience, and like singing the song that I'm going to sing. So I think like kind of imagining yourself doing that helps a lot because when you actually go on stage and perform, or when you actually like sit down to record a podcast episode, it isn't completely foreign to you. It isn't a surprise. It's something that like you had visualized in your head, so you're not as thrown back by it.
What advice do you have for preparing other than just kind of writing a script and going through it? What do you do with when, what I've noticed as an instructor is I have a daily lesson plan, right? It never goes that way. There's always something that comes up.
Right.
How do you deal with that?
So I mean, I have two answers for this. One in terms of the podcast that I'm doing, and one in just general in terms of like my general life. So in terms of like a podcast, um, I just, to be honest, I do as much research as I can about the person that I'm going to be interviewing, because I never want to like run out of ideas to talk about. And I feel like if I know the topics in the beginning that like their passions or other things that they're involved in that I kind of would want to talk about, it gives me a good idea. And it's going back to the same idea I was talking about before, like writing a planner or schedule. It's kind of like writing out a little timetable in my head of like what topics I kind of want to cover. Now, when I do my podcast, I don't I don't write out the individual questions because I just feel like it doesn't sound as organic, which is why I really respect how your podcast is unscripted. I think it's more natural that way and more genuine. So I don't really write out individual questions, but I kind of write out overarching topics that I would want to cover.
Awesome. I agree. I agree. Um, it just, I think I would rather listen to something that's genuine than something that's, you know what I mean?
Right. I feel like it comes more from the heart when you don't have things like as many things planned.
So I'd like to get you into talking about imatter.org, what that's about, what inspired you with that, if you'd be willing to share,
Yeah,
and
of
then how
course.
that led to your content creation, because you're more than a podcast. You've got those trailers are just wonderful. I love those. I think with podcasting, it's really, you're somebody that can be trusted. You say right now I'm running behind on my schedule, but so far you've delivered, and you're
Thank
coming up
you.
to a critical time where are you going to be able to continue this? What are your thoughts for the future? But if you could start with imatter.org, and I told you this in our prep call the other day, was I finally went on there, like you said, you do research on your guests, and I went and looked at your website, and honestly, when I was reading your story, I started to tear up a little bit. And it's like, that's the
Oh,
inspiration I'm looking. I already had the inspiration I needed from you, but that right there was like, wow, it just connected in so many ways. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
yeah. So, when I was little, there was this individual in my life that meant a lot to me. And one day, that individual kind of had like a talk with me, and they told me that they had something called retinitis pigmentosa. And for those listening who don't know what retinitis pigmentosa is, that's basically tunnel vision. So it's literally like looking through a tunnel. They don't have their peripheral vision. And that actually posed a lot of problems for them. And this individual, like the reason that I'm not saying their name or like saying their relation to me is because they've always kind of wanted to keep this anonymous, their retinitis pigmentosa condition. They didn't want to like advertise it to too many people. They kind of kept it within family. So because they kept it within family, they didn't have like a guide dog or like a cane or anything to help them. So we would be the ones to help them, like their family would be the ones to help them. So I remember always holding that person's hand outside wherever we went, and we kind of came up with this little system where if that person had to step up on a staircase, I would squeeze his hand once, and then if he had to step down, I would squeeze it twice. And then soon we kind of had like this little like system or almost like a different language going through like the squeezing of hands. And this helped that person so much. And I think like I would always just, wherever we go, is just an instinct to like help this person. And it's so crazy. One day I was holding my mom's hand and I accidentally squeezed it because there was like a fire hydrant in front, and I was like, and she's like, huh? And I was like, oh, like it was literally, it's become second nature for me. And I totally like didn't even realize that I was like guiding her, but I was. And so kind of just growing up ever since I was 4 years old and helping this person out, I developed a passion for helping individuals with visual impairments. And retinitis pigmentosa doesn't really have a cure. It's untreatable. So when I was little, like I always dreamt, like I always told that person, don't worry, I'm going to become an eye doctor when I grow up and I'm going to find a cure for you. And when I was in second grade, there was this competition called Astounding Inventions. And as I told you earlier, I'm really interested in STEM. So I participated in this competition, and we had to make an invention. And so my invention was called the invisible cane, because I was kind of gearing my invention towards people who aren't really comfortable with like showing people their visual impairment yet.
I can relate to that in my younger years. Absolutely.
Right. Yeah. Like at first it's really hard. And I was just thinking of that person, my family member in mind when making this invention. And it's basically, and it was my second grade self making it. So it isn't like super like crazy invention, but it was literally like a glove with like a motion sensor in like the fingertips of the glove. And so when the person like walks and they keep their hands at their sides and their fingertips tilted towards the ground-ish and forward, it would like detect like objects, and then it would like vibrate.
Oh, wow. That's actually pretty cool. They could actually
Yeah.
direct where they want to search.
Yeah, and it wasn't like a working model. As a second grader, I could never program that, but it was just like a prototype, um, just an idea. And so, like that astounding inventions competition, any STEM competition that it would be, whether it's science fair, whatever, I would always I would always make a project that pertained to helping individuals with visual impairments. And so, doing that over like the past 12-ish years really just grew my passion for helping individuals with visual impairments. And that's why now this year I felt like, hey, like I'm in high school now, like I'm old enough to actually take action and do something that would be impactful. So I wanted to start I Matter, which is like kind of like an organization which would kind of create a community for people with visual impairments online. And it kind of has this message like, oh, there's someone else like me who's facing the same problems, but who is able to like overcome those problems. And so I started the iMatter organization, and within iMatter, I started the See Beyond podcast, in which I interview people who tell me how they see beyond their visual impairments. And I've gotten some great feedback so far of individuals telling me that this podcast has like helped give them advice and stuff. And it's really nice to listen and hear about people's experiences, such as your experiences that you told me today on my podcast's recording. It's nice to hear these experiences and see that I'm not the only one who's facing these problems. And so hopefully in the future, I'll have some more projects on the iMatter page. Right now, I'm just focusing on the podcast, but once things start get going for that, I'm going to start some other projects too. So the website is called I-Matter. So it's EYE-MATTER.org.
Okay. Where do you see yourself a year from now?
A year from now, I mean, honestly, I'm still going to be in high school. I'm going to be a senior writing college essays a year from now. But that's pretty much it. But I'm hoping that this iMatter organization will be able to reach more people out there, and it'll be able to help a lot of people. So that's like my main goal. I'm just hoping that this will all like kind of spread out more, and I'll be able to reach people.
Are you doing all the work? Do you have a team?
Yeah, so I'm actually doing all the work right now, which is kind of a little overwhelming, but it isn't too bad. And I'm starting a club at my school to recruit people who would be willing to because I actually go to art school. So there's different conservatories. So I'm hoping we'll have people from the film and television conservatory who will be able to edit the videos instead of me doing it, and have a marketing team. So that's definitely within the next month or so. I'm going to have a team. So that's very exciting.
So you write the concept, you write the episode, you invite the guests, you do all of the scheduling that goes along with that. You actually conduct the interview and record it. You go back and do the editing. You manage the website, you manage the social media. It's a lot of work, and you're a full-time student. I really like the logo that's associated.
Thank you.
Can you describe that a little bit and talk about your inspiration?
So the logo, for those who don't know, is kind of like a heart with an eye in the middle, and the heart, when it's formed, it's formed through the lines of the eye, and it's kind of hard to describe, but I did the best that I could, and you can check it out on our website. But when I was thinking of this logo, I obviously knew that I wanted to incorporate an eye into it, because that's literally what I'm doing is helping individuals who have visual impairments. So I knew I wanted an eye, but I remember thinking of what else I could have. And I was like, I know exactly what I'm going to have. It's going to be a heart. And the reason that the eye is seeping into the heart is because it has multiple meanings to it. One is it doesn't matter if you have any visual obstacles that are inhibiting you from doing anything. It's about what's within, what's in your heart. That was the first message that I wanted to convey, which is why the eye is leaking into the heart. Another message that I wanted to convey is that your visual impairment, which is kind of described by the eye, is helping you form a community, which is formed by the heart. So it's kind of love. It describes love. You have all the support and everything that you need, which is why the heart is surrounding the eye. It's kind of hugging the eye almost. And so you have all the support and everything that you need through the podcast, through whatever it is. So that was kind of the inspiration for the logo.
What message do you want to share?
I think a message that I want to share is to be yourself and be confident. in what you are. And I know everyone says that time and time again. I've heard this message from so many people. It's like, just be yourself, just be happy with who you are. But when people tell you this piece of advice, it's so impractical in your head, right? When you have all these expectations that you want to live to, it's like, how am I supposed to be myself when I want to have these certain qualities, or I want to look like this, or I want to act like this, or I want to be like this? Like, saying be yourself is almost like mocking you, in a sense, you know. That's what I used to always think when people would say, oh, just be yourself. Just you are unique, and you are the only person who is yourself, and so that's why you should just be yourself. That's what I was constantly hearing when I was growing up. And this phrase would honestly anger me so much, because telling someone to be themselves isn't going to fix all their problems, right? It's not going to fix all their insecurities. And so that's when confidence takes place, and that's where confidence kind of fits into this story. The first kind of step into following the advice of being yourself is to gain confidence. And the only way to really gain confidence is to put yourself out there and to be open to failure.